This is Kotonoha Foundation's cross-cultural debate between students from Ghana and students from Japan. We're debating on the topic about COVID. Specifically, we're debating about the topic that says the law on mandatory wearing of face masks violate human rights. The team from Japan will debate for the motion, and the team from Ghana will debate against the motion. And so we'll first have the students from each team introduce themselves. Please, let's start off with Anna.
Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Anna Umeda. I think I'm the oldest in the team we're gonna debate today with Yonu and Ayaka. I've been to countless competitions in Japan and a couple international competitions. So I have experience in both academic debate and parliamentary debate. And I enjoy debating. So I really hope we can have a nice debate today. I'll pass it on to Yonu.
Hi, my name is Hiroo. I'm currently a sophomore in high school, so I'm 16. I mainly compete parliamentary Asians, or I do British parliamentary debate. I haven't done academic debate in like a year, so I might be a little rusty, but I'm really excited.
Hi, my name is Ayaka, and I'm also a sophomore in high school. I'm currently 16. Yeah, I actually came from a public forum background, so I used to do public forum for a couple of years, but recently I've been doing British parliamentary and also other types of parliamentary. So yeah, I'm excited for this story.
Okay, so if we could have the team from Ghana introduce themselves.
Okay, so I'm Emanuela Edu, and I'm 16. I'm in Mampon Presbyterian Senior High School, and I'm a science student, and I do academic debates.
Okay, so my name is Maurice Japon, and then I'm 60 years old, and then I attend Presbyterian Senior High School, Mampon. And then I've been to many debates and I've participated in some before.
Okay, I'm also Courage Kwashiga King Adami. I'm kind of different from the rest. I'm 17. Yeah, and I also do academic debates. And then I look forward to enjoy the debate with you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the introduction, everyone. So we're going to start off with the team from Japan with their principal speaker. So let's get a good debate going. Yep.
Okay, I'll start. My time starts in 3, 2, 1. Before I present my signposts, a few pieces of framing on what this debate is about. As the motion reads, we are not proposing a law. Thus, we're not arguing about whether masks should be mandatory or not, but rather on the principle of how it correlates with human rights. The uniqueness we see in masks is that it is not absolute and it is not necessary to survive per se. So comparing wearing a mask just to live your life as wearing a seatbelt when using a car, which isn't really necessary to survive and is not a valid claim in the debate. Now, let me start off with a lawsuit case in the US to frame the present situation. Ashton Forbes, a plaintiff in a lawsuit challenging San Diego County's mask requirements, said that with new data coming to light about the severity of the coronavirus, it has become more prevalent that the requirement to wear masks is not effective in stopping the spread of COVID-19. As such, the requirement to wear a face mask is overboard and violates fundamental rights of both the United States Constitution and the California Constitution. Now, with that in mind, onto my signposts. 1, right to choose and danger to democracy. 2, backlash could be counter-effective. 1, right to choose and danger to democracy. Mandatory face mask laws comes with a prejudice and attacks against people who don't wear a mask. People who decide not to wear masks will be forced into wearing it, not only through legal reasons, but also through fear. The fear of being attacked and the fear of being shut down shut out, or discriminated. This, as an example, for example, we have public shaming on the streets or on social media, and this is what a mandate does. What is a liberal democracy when these laws function through fear from social and legal pressures? The opposition may argue on a utilitarian standpoint that this consequentialist way of thinking, the mask mandates will create a better outcome in the end. In the US, according to Newsweek, 83% of people were for wearing masks. But what happens to the 17%? Are they to be stripped of their right to choose? Are they to be oppressed into wearing masks? Through a lens of categorical moral philosophy, we cannot simply say that for the sake of medical security, we should ignore the 17% minority who are unwilling to wear a mask. Furthermore, it will not only apply to the people who choose not to wear a mask, but also people who physically are not recommended to wear masks. The CDC doesn't recommend putting masks on children under 2 years old because they are incapable of removing them and could suffocate. Now, 2, backlash could be counter-effective. The present situation. Mandatory masks have become a political issue due to the exposure and narrative about masks spread by each party. This is why, according to a recent Pew Research Center poll, that Democrats were more likely to say they wear masks than Republicans. The US president has suggested wearing a mask could be seen as a political statement against him and mocked Biden for wearing a mask in public, according to The Guardian. This has been a backlash and commented by both parties and a lot of polarization of the politicized masks, which have now become a political statement rather than a safety measure. Now, what is the effect of this? This means that because both sides are trying to win the mask issue, they have spread a lot of information on it. And a lot of people believe genuinely that wearing or not wearing a mask is a controversial statement. Thus, this means a lot of misinformation happens, trying to beat their opponents, and a lot of polarization from heated, twisted discussions on social media. So now, how does this relate to human rights, our human rights? People have the right, and the government has the responsibility to prevent this misinformation and allow people to make the most educated vote as possible to protect themselves and their liberal democracy. This is the entire concept of Rousseau's social contract. Because of this polarization and creation of echo chambers, there are, 1, a lot of conflict, like, for example, the protests that occurred in the US Capitol raid, which harmed the government from functioning and harmed a lot of businesses and people's human rights as well. 2, hardcore people like to get good and other information because 1, the news is dominated by anti-mask claims in social media as well, and 2, people spread misinformation because that's what they're told by their leaders. Now, on the American Constitution, it is mentioned that we have the right to free speech, to our own body, and to make decisions in voting. And we cannot take away these unalienable rights from us. Thus, we are not willing to trade off any other alienable right that is not written in the Constitution whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for your speech. Can we now have the first speaker from the Ghanaian team?
Okay. My opponent made mention of the right to choose. And I think that's a delusion because so as you have the right to choose what you want to wear, so do the public health officials have the right to protect our lives in the case of state emergencies. And COVID-19 is a state emergency. So if the public health officials have brought it that we should wear a face mask, then I don't think you should say it's an infringement on your rights, but rather to see that it is protecting your own life. The argument about wearing a face mask in the midst of a pandemic is rather surprising. The chair, our first point to buttress our stance is that the wearing of face mask serves as a safety measure safety measure in the sense that you are wearing the face mask because you do not know what's in the atmosphere. You do not know the people carrying the disease. And public health officials and health experts have told us that people could be symptomatic and people could be asymptomatic. And to play safe, the public health officials have said, let us put on a face mask so that we prevent ourselves from contracting COVID-19. And I don't see that to be an infringement on our human rights, because so as you have the right to live, you have the right against discrimination. I don't see any right against you wearing a small face covering to protect yourself. That is why we are here to say that the wearing of the face mask does not violate your rights, but rather it helps you protect your life and the lives of those around you. Also, the wearing of the face mask in the midst of a pandemic helps to reduce and prevent the spread. According to www.japan Guide, one of the most prominent professors in Japan, that is Professor Akiko Iwasaki, made mention that the evidence of the face mask has helped a lot in flattening the curve of COVID-19. Not only in Japan, but in US too, a study was proving that all the countries or the states that made the mandatory wearing of face masks public have received a decline in daily cases, and this I see to be an improvement, because we are all thinking of how we can get out of this pandemic, and wearing a face mask is one of the options to come out and work and have our freedom. So I don't see why you should say it's an infringement on your human rights. Also, the wearing of the face mask has exemption. The law on the wearing of the face mask has exemptions, meaning that children under the age of 11 years are not permitted to wear the face mask. People that have disabilities, people that are physically challenged, people that depend on lip reading are permitted from not wearing the face mask. So it means that we that do not have these challenges are not supposed to be complaining on the face mask, saying that it breaches our human rights, because we are in a time where we do not know where we are going to, and then we do not know when the pandemic is going to end, meaning that we are supposed to make sure that we keep ourselves safe and the lives of those around us. Thinking about the wearing of face masks and the infringement on our human rights, I do not see how our human rights are being infringed upon. I don't see the relationship between wearing a small face covering in the midst of a pandemic will infringe on your rights, because the law being mandatory is helping us so that all of us begin to wear the face mask. According to www.japanguide.com again, a post said that in Japan, the wearing of the face mask has been habitual for decades ago. You've been wearing the face mask. And in 2008, there was a production of 1.8 billion nose masks. And in 2017, which was before COVID-19, there was a production of 5.3 billion face masks. So I want to pose a question to my opponents, asking them that, why didn't you ever complain of the face mask infringing on your rights? Yes, till you waited till this COVID-19 pandemic to hit us before you say that the wearing of the face mask infringes on your rights. Also, you've been wearing the face mask to cure some flus and then common colds. So it's a common sight to see someone wearing the face mask if the person is not feeling well. Even in 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic caused most Japanese to put on face masks. So I would like to ask, if it wasn't effective, then I'm sure we wouldn't have still be wearing it. But because we've seen how effective the wearing of nose masks or face masks is in the midst of a pandemic, that is why health experts have advised the public to put on a face mask. So putting on a face mask does not infringe on your right, because Professor Sarr once said that your right to throw your fist ends at the point my nose begins. So if you do not even care about your life, then you should think about the life of others, because the more you not put on the face mask, the more you are putting others at the risk of getting COVID-19. And that, I think, we should rather complain of that being an infringement, not putting a face mask to protect our lives being an infringement on our human rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that great speech. Can we have the second speaker from the Japanese team?
Hello, I'm the first supporting speaker. My 3-minute speech starts now. I'll be telling you about 3 things today. First, if masks actually help with public health. Side opposition tells you how masks can help improve public health. However, there is sufficient data to support that mask requirements effectively prevent the spread of coronavirus, and here are the evidence for why this is so. One, Joseph A. Ladoff from Wall Street Journal tells us that claims that low mask compliance is responsible for rising case counts are also not supported by Gallup data, which shows that the percentage of Americans reporting wearing masks has been high and relatively stable since June, regardless of the mask. Second, Ashton Forbes, challenging San Diego's country's mask requirements, says, with new evidence and data coming from light regarding the science and severity of the specific issue, it has become ever more prevalent that requirement to wear a facial covering is not effective in stopping the spread of COVID-19. They give you an example about Japan, but Japan is a country with very relatively little COVID and a country that is for centuries, as they tell you, has had a culture of wearing masks. Whereas in places like the United States, it is very different, where masks have become a politicized issue and it was never a culture. When we look at the majority of the world where masks are not a prevailing culture, does the same ideology that side opposition pushes to apply? We strongly doubt this. At the end of the day, health officials and political leaders have assigned mask mandates a gravity unsupported by empirical research, and masks are simply a distraction from the pandemic reality. Second, if masks do help with public health, is it constitutional? The principle of human rights side opposition pushes to us about protecting the majority only holds when it is not violating our most fundamental human rights. The differentiation that I want to make here is alienable and non-alienable rights. We think that the rights my first speaker tells you about, like the right to public safety and the free speech, are things that in no matter circumstance, no matter what circumstance, the Constitution of the Founding Fathers of the United States made and must be protected. As one protester said, the coronavirus doesn't override the Constitution, and going by the Constitution must be the most upmost priority in this debate. In other words, people are being obligated to wear something that in the first place does not have very strong evidence of working in the general population to avoid the spread of an outbreak, and some people, because of health reasons, cannot physically wear, basically creating a situation in which a person that is probably not infected with any virus gets discriminated for having a condition that makes them incapable to wear a mask. Third, which human rights need to be prioritized? It is almost impossible to protect every single right and every single aspect of democracy in all situations. So I'll be giving you the weighing here of why the rights we push for are the most important. We agree that these people do have an obligation to care about public safety, and so do officials. However, we think that this is where the clash arises of protecting public health versus our rights. While public health is important, as a citizen and as a society, in the idea, protecting these individual rights and liberties as an individual and a citizen is the most important, because we think the whole concept of human rights were created to protect individual liberties, especially because how many minorities or poor individuals had their rights taken away by the majority. At the end of the day, its concept and the idea behind it is what's harmful, not the physical mask itself. As the Vice Principal Mike Pence states, I want to remind you again, freedom of speech and the right to peacefully assemble is in the Constitution of the United States, even in a health crisis. The American people don't forfeit our fundamental conditional human rights. So I've never been prouder to propose.
Thank you for that speech. Can we have the next speaker from Team Ghana?
The secret of change is focusing all your energy, not on the old, but on building the new. I overheard my opponent mention some points, and I think they are fallacies. She said that the wearing of face masks is not effective. According to who? They said that wearing of face masks is one of the preventive measures that can limit the acquisition of the spread of COVID-19. They are not saying that the wearing of face masks is the only preventive measure, but it is one of the preventive measures to suppress the spread of the COVID-19. She also said that it violates on the rights of those who are physically disabled. That is why there are exemptions on the law. The exemptions are there to cover those who are physically disabled. So you can't use that as an excuse to say that the wearing of face masks is violating our human rights. My teammates and I know that the face mask is not created to violate our human rights, but rather it is created to help protect our life and also improve some aspects of our life. My first point to buttress our stand is that it prevents the spread of other airborne diseases. Airborne diseases are diseases that are acquired or transmitted through the atmosphere. So wearing this face mask will prevent us from getting these airborne diseases. According to ColombianDRHospitals.com, they state that the face mask is a simple way to prevent lung diseases. So we must wear our face mask and prevent those lung diseases from getting into our system and from us dying. This is the reason why my teammates and I are strongly saying that let's wear the face mask. And then it is not a violation of our human rights, but rather it is used to protect our life. My second point to buttress our stand is that it allows for reduction in lockdown. Lockdown is when people are forced to stay in their houses. They are restricted from going outside, from doing other things like schooling, from working. So when the great lockdown hit our country, and in our world, we saw that according to April World Economic Outlook, they projected that when the great lockdown hits our world, our economic growth will fall to -3% if we still are under lockdown. But due to the face mask, now we are able to go outside and work. So this prediction is now false. The chair, let's all come together and realize that we must wear our nose mask, and then not say that this nose mask or this face mask is a violation on our rights, but rather we should wear it and protect ourselves and our loved ones. Thank you.
I thank the second speaker for their speech. Let's move on to the final speaker of Team Japan, or the Japanese team. Yep.
Okay, I'd like to start my speech. Now, the pandemic should never be a time where people are coerced into something because of fear and dehumanized because of the governmental system pressures them into believing something that they disagree with, right? These kind of things should only be done through a logical explanation instead of hard, strict, and non-negotiable laws for everyone, and therefore it violates the human rights. What is the biggest clash in this debate? Whether face masks are going to be a safety measure or a violation. We told you how it will be counter-effective anyways because of backlash. The opponent team answered the question by telling you they don't see any harm from wearing a small piece of face covering. Their team's argument does not stand because my fellow first supporting speaker proved that first, the correlation between mask and spread of disease is not as close as many people think, but rather more about medical facilities and the decrease of human interaction, right? Second, why protecting public health is more important, but concept of human rights and liberties are even beyond that, right? Third, dehumanizes us, builds consent, encourages conformity. This opens the door to further violation of human rights in the future because it justifies it, right? Now, even if their arguments stand, why ultimately the motion is not a helpful way of supporting the pandemic, right? Stopping the pandemic. We value human lives too. However, it is just simply too cruel for the government to abandon the people who physically could not wear masks and ignore how face masks can potentially be damaging to one's physical health, right? The fundamental idea of human rights lied in that we protect individuals who have been exploited by the majority, the most vulnerable people, right? What they're doing is not catering towards the most vulnerable, especially when it is very hard to tell who has a disability like asthma, right? Therefore, we successfully answer a question by saying we win this clash. So there should be a right to choose. The manipulation and coercing people into masks should never be justified. The government should take a more logical approach, and they should make to be able to better the societal narrative from a place where it is manipulating, mandatory, and dehumanizing to something that people can actually agree to, right? At the end of the day, there are many ways to override the pandemic together, but forcing people to wear a mask mandatorily, regardless of their situation, is simply a violation instead of protection. I would like to end my speech today with a quote from the Federalist from Molly McCann to take our freedom for us, right? People with anti-American agendas have to mobilize some initial quorum of consent from the population, and mandatory masking seeks to build that consent. This will only lead to slippery slope in which mandatory mask requirements will lead to more governmental mandates, bureaucracy, and regulation. Very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Now the final speaker from Team Ghana.
My opponents made mention of some points, and I think they are just mere illusions. She said that people with asthma, when they wear the nose mask or the face mask, they wouldn't be able to be identified. The chair, that is why we are saying that there are exemptions on the law which takes care of those who have asthma and then other disabilities. A kind of people who value their privileges or rights above certain principles soon loses both. The only good is knowledge, and then the only evil is ignorance. To chair the House, once again, I'm Courage Kwashiga King Adam, the summarizer against the motion, quote unquote, the law on mandatory wearing of face mask violates human rights. The chair, without further ado, I would like to list out the points my teammates and I raised. The first point we raise is that the law on mandatory wearing of face mask does not violate human rights, but then it reduces the spread of other diseases. Furthermore, the law on mandatory wearing of face mask does not violate human rights because there is an exemption on the law. The next point is that the law on mandatory wearing of face mask does not violate human rights because it serves as a safety measure. The last point is that the law on mandatory wearing of face masks does not violate human rights because it allows for reduction in lockdowns and then other restrictions. In Japan now, and then some time ago, wearing of face mask was regarded as a common sight, and then it is even thought of as a proper etiquette, especially when you are sick. There is a saying that history is bound to repeat itself, but then it does not mean that we shouldn't learn from it and then take up the necessary precautions to save our own lives today and then some years to come. The great scientist Marie Curie once said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood." Now is the time to understand that the mandatory wearing of face masks does not violate human rights. Arigato. Thank you.
Thank you both teams for those wonderful speeches. Please give me around 5 minutes for me to come up with my judging, and also the judge from Ghana could also make their decision. So let us meet back in around 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so I gathered my thoughts, looked over my notes, and I am ready to make my decision. Is the judge from the other team ready to make their decision?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. The judge for Alisa is ready to give his view on what the debate was all about. Personally, I think it went well, and thank you for the good show, and then leave it to Alistair to tell us his view.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for the debate today. Push back.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for a good debate today. My observations were that the first speaker for the Japan team spoke for slightly over 5 minutes, and the third speaker, or the second supporting speaker for the Ghana team, spoke for a little over his time also. I think that both teams put good points across, and they had obviously done a lot of research on the motion, and they spoke with a lot of confidence also, and in a short space of time to put that number of good points across was very good. And I think that both teams spoke well, and that overall it was a very good debate. Thank you.
Yep. So for my observations, I think I agree with the things about both points. Just to get back, I think the debate was ultimately like really decided upon in the final speaker, especially the Ghanaian's final speaker really closed the deal with this idea that like what the Japan team's arguments weren't necessarily unique to their side, because ultimately Ghana argued that the Ghanaian team argued that people will still have exemptions, which is what's going on in reality, right? Which is why the main point about like human rights, because people should have what Japan should have done, the Japanese team should have done, is push more towards the direction of human rights as an inherent thing, rather than like, oh, to protect certain people such as those with asthma, because those people are still protected on the side of the Ghanaian team's argument, right? So ultimately, I think that upon logical consideration, like arguments wise, I think the Ghanaian team had the upper hand here. But obviously, I think it was a very high quality debate for both teams. What struck out for me is like they pointed out like how are rights infringed, right? And how rights, I think that's what Team Japan really should have pointed out, answered, right? Because we had a lot of talk about like how like the majority of people like masked people can have political opinions, like there's political backlash, there's a social contract. All of those things are real. It's just they're not necessarily something that like goes away with like having people having to wear masks. And the point about public shaming, which the Japan team made, is okay. So people who have like asthma and such, they might be judged if they do not wear a mask. So that's why we should not make it exempt anyways. The thing is that in reality, like no, I don't, in Japan at least, where no one is forced to wear a mask, but it's kind of implied that you do, right? So I don't think that will necessarily change. We already live in a society that like through societal and cultural norms, people wear masks anyways. Like when we are talking about people that are against masks, like wearing masks, whether that mean the United States, whether that mean Japan or any other country, those people are not really the majority of people, right? Most people just wake up, wear the mask, and go on with their days. So that's why I think necessarily the Ghanaian team had a better argument because it struck more to the reality and practical sides of things. But I think overall it was a great debate for both sides.
Thank you very much for your comment. Personally, I think that both teams did excellent work. They really made sure they did a lot of research, came up with strong points, even as far as the team from Japan gave some information from the US, even though the Ghanaian team also were strong. They also told us something about Japan, that Japan didn't start wearing nose masks recently. It has been one of the things that has happened even when there was SARS in Japan and then in Asia, people were putting on those masks to prevent or to make sure that it's a means of safety precautions. So I agree with both the judges that both teams were able to give it as a solid point. And then I would also congratulate the team from Japan for making it up to debate. Looking at the time difference, they still made it up to have this debate. And thank you very much for this. And then I hope that maybe we can do this once again, maybe sometime soon or whenever. I think it will help my students to build up more confidence. Having international debate from Japan is really good. I know most of your speakers have had countless of debate section with international students, and then this will also boost their confidence, because once they've been able to have debate with your student, it will boost their confidence to be strong and be persuasive as debaters. So thank you very much. Arigato.
Thank you. So yeah, I think it's good that if we can schedule another debate, and next time we can try doing debate in a parliamentary format, which is where we get the motion like 15 minutes before and you prep on the spot without using like the internet or anything. So it's just like logic. That's the format I think that a lot of debaters from Japan are used to. But we are also everyone here except for Riku, but like the four of us here are preparing for the National Academic Debate Championships, which is coming up. So this is great practice for us, and it was also a great like experience to be able to debate with debaters from other countries. So I thought it was a great day today, and I hope we can do this again.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy that the next debate will be the parliamentary type, and it's one of the things that we don't do, but I would like my students also to have an experience about that. So I think that's a good call. We would be ready. Just give us the date that we'll meet, and then once 15 minutes to time, give us the motion. We'll quickly work on it and then have that experience. So it's a great call. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if the debaters also have comment to make or to tell us. We'll be happy to hear from them what they also think the debate, how it went, and then their views, and if there's anything that we can learn from them as well. So the debaters, you have the floor. You can say something. Anna, and then Ayaka, and the rest. Sorry if I didn't pronounce the name correctly.
Yeah, thank you so much for the debate. It was really interesting and I think a really invigorating, high quality debate as well. I think like just like Ryu said, I think the arguments that we had weren't necessarily okay, I feel like I'm just gonna repeat what Ryu said. But I think what your team did really good on the Ghana side was that I feel like you guys were able to kind of wrap up everything and find like a solution to the problem that we were trying to address as well. Because I mean, we want to protect the citizens and the people and their safety. In the end, we want everyone to be safe. And when it comes to human rights, it's complicated. There's a lot of discussions and debates going on, especially in like America and other countries. But I think I would argue that if you would go to America and debate this to like Trump or whatever, he would be convinced that there should be a mask mandate. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Medasi, is that how you say things?
Any other person? Medasi, yeah? All right, Medasi, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, any other comment from the debaters? Okay. If there's no comment, then I will say thank you very much. Bariku, could you please send me the recordings, because the student would like to watch like how everything went. So if you could send me the video recording later this week or when you have time, that would be much appreciated.
Okay. Yeah. Please be safe, and everyone's suffering from COVID right now, so make sure to everyone stay healthy and have this opportunity again. So Prince will keep in touch, and I'll send you the recordings later online so they can share with your students, and I'll edit it so we'll make sure the audio is clear and the whole flow is smooth. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you Team Ghana and Team Japan for organizing this wonderful opportunity.
All right, but sorry, my attention has been drawn that I'm not being fair. At least I gave the opportunity for one of the debaters to speak, and then I'll give just within a matter of a minute or less than a minute for our debaters to give their comment. So I don't know, any of you could take a seat and say something.
So we've not really done this kind of debates before, and this is our first time. So doing it with you and you saying that you've done well, we are really appreciating, like we are really grateful for your comments. It means that we are improving on whatever we are doing. At first, we thought maybe communication would be a problem or you might not get us clearly, but thankfully, you got everything we said, and then you even got some recommendations, and we also learned a lot from the style of debate. I think that's all we have to say.
Okay, I think that would be. Thank you very much, and then we'll communicate soon.